Hello and welcome. Today, I'd like to talk heart to heart about something that can cause a unique kind of ache. When our children, the ones we've invested our lives in raising, seem to show disrespect. This experience hits differently when it comes from adult children, doesn't it? After decades of guidance, love, and sacrifice, hearing dismissive words or witnessing disrespectful behavior from grown children carries a particular weight that's hard to describe to those who haven't experienced it. If you're going through this, I want you to know first that you're not alone. Many parents in their 60s, 70s, and beyond find themselves surprised by the painful dynamics that can emerge with adult children. The relationship you envisioned during those early parenting years may look quite different now, and that gap between expectation and reality can be truly heartbreaking. But I also want you to know there's hope. While we can't control our adult children's behavior, we can influence the relationship through thoughtful approaches and consistent boundaries. Today, we'll explore practical strategies that honor both your dignity and the complex reality of adult family relationships. Understanding the why behind disrespect. Before we discuss solutions, it helps to briefly consider some context. Understanding isn't the same as excusing, but it can provide clarity that guides our responses. Adult children's disrespect often has complex roots. Sometimes it reflects unresolved issues from earlier developmental stages, perhaps boundaries that weren't firmly established years ago, or communication patterns that formed gradually over decades. Other times, it may stem from their current life stresses being misdirected toward you, or societal shifts in how authority and respect are viewed across generations. For many seniors, there is also the unique dynamic that emerges as roles begin to shift. When adult children start viewing themselves as the responsible ones, or become concerned about your independence or decisions. This transition period can breed tension if not navigated thoughtfully by both parties. Sometimes, too, our own past responses have unintentionally reinforced disrespectful patterns. Perhaps we reacted with heightened emotion, or maybe we accepted disrespect to maintain peace. These patterns can solidify over years into harmful dynamics that feel impossible to change. But here's what's important. Regardless of how we got here, we can focus on what we can influence now. Understanding the why helps us respond more effectively, but dwelling too much on the past can keep us stuck. Let's turn our attention to practical approaches that can help restore mutual respect. Finding your calm within the storm. The most powerful tool in addressing disrespect is, perhaps surprisingly, our own emotional regulation. When faced with disrespect, our natural response is often hurt that quickly transforms into anger or defensive reactions. Yet these emotional responses typically escalate tension rather than resolving it. Finding calm amid disrespect requires practice and intention. When your adult child speaks harshly or dismissively, try taking a slow, deep breath before responding. This simple pause creates space between the trigger and your reaction, space where wisdom can enter. Some find it helpful to develop a personal mantra for these moments. I choose my response, or I can stay calm even when others aren't, or simply breathe first, speak second. These inner reminders can anchor you when emotions threaten to overtake thoughtful response. There is also tremendous power in temporarily stepping away when emotions are high. You might say, this conversation feels heated. I'd like to take some time to think. and we can continue this discussion later. This isn't avoiding the issue. It's modeling healthy emotional management. Mary, a 72-year-old grandmother, shared how her son would often criticize her financial decisions during family gatherings. Initially, she'd become defensive, which led to arguments that left everyone feeling worse. She began practicing the pause, taking a breath, sometimes excusing herself briefly, and returning to the conversation when she felt centered. Over time, her calm responses changed the dynamic entirely. He still has opinions, she says, but how we discuss them has transformed. Remember that staying calm doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. Rather, it means responding from a place of inner strength rather than reactivity. Your calmness actually becomes a form of modeling that, over time, can influence how your adult child engages with you. Perhaps take a moment now to reflect on your typical emotional responses when faced with disrespect. What triggers affect you most deeply? What calm response might you practice the next time this situation arises? Setting clear, respectful boundaries. Of all the strategies we'll discuss, boundary setting may be both the most essential and the most challenging, particularly with adult children. Many of us raised during different eras weren't taught to articulate personal boundaries clearly. Others worry that boundaries might damage tenuous relationships or appear selfish. These concerns are understandable, but needn't prevent us from establishing necessary limits. Boundaries with adult children aren't about control. They're about defining the conditions under which you're willing to engage. They protect your dignity and ultimately make healthier relationships possible. Start by getting clear about what specific behaviors feel disrespectful to you. Is it interrupting you during conversations, dismissing your opinions, making decisions without consulting you, speaking with a condescending tone, critical comments about your lifestyle choices? Being precise helps you address the actual issue rather than general feelings of disrespect. When communicating boundaries, I statements prove invaluable. Rather than, "You're always so rude," try, "I feel hurt when my opinions are dismissed before I've finished expressing them." This approach focuses on the impact of the behavior rather than attacking their character. For example, if an adult daughter regularly cancels plans last minute, you might say, "I value our time together and make arrangements to accommodate our plans. When plans change at the last minute repeatedly, I feel my time isn't valued. Going forward, I need at least 24 hours notice for cancellations unless it's an emergency." The most challenging aspect of boundaries is consequences. What happens when boundaries are crossed? With adult children, consequences should be related to the boundary and within your control. If your son speaks disrespectfully during phone calls, you might say, "When conversations turn disrespectful, I'll need to end the call. We can try again another time." Then, and this is crucial, follow through consistently. Financial entanglements often complicate boundary setting with adult children. If you're providing financial support that has become connected to accepting disrespect, you may need to reconsider those arrangements. This doesn't mean withdrawing all support, but it might mean establishing clear conditions or transitioning toward greater independence in ways that respect both parties. Robert, 68, struggled with his 42-year-old son's habit of making belittling comments about Robert's technology skills during family gatherings. After much thought, Robert established a boundary. When you make comments about my inability to understand technology, it feels disrespectful. I'm still learning, and I'd appreciate either patient assistance or no commentary on the subject. The first time his son made another joke, Robert calmly said, "Remember our conversation about technology comments?" and changed the subject. His consistency gradually changed the pattern. Setting boundaries often triggers guilt. Am I being too harsh? Too demanding? Remember that healthy boundaries actually improve relationships by creating clarity and respect. Consider what boundaries would help you maintain your dignity while still nurturing the relationship, and start with those that feel most important. Building bridges through active listening and validation. It might seem counterintuitive to focus on listening when you're the one experiencing disrespect. Yet, improved listening can sometimes transform these difficult dynamics, particularly because it addresses one common source of tension: adult children feeling unheard or misunderstood. Active listening involves fully focusing on understanding your child's perspective without immediately preparing your response or defense. It means asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what you've heard, and acknowledging emotions even when you disagree with the content. For instance, if your daughter expresses frustration about your healthcare decisions, rather than immediately defending your choices, you might say, "It sounds like you're worried about my well-being and feel I'm not making the best choices for my health. Is that right?" This validation doesn't mean you're agreeing to change your decisions. It simply acknowledges her concern as legitimate from her perspective. This approach often de-escalates tension by removing the need for the other person to escalate to feel heard. When people feel genuinely understood, they typically become more receptive to hearing your perspective as well. Margaret, 74, noticed increasing tension with her son regarding her living situation. Instead of continuing their circular arguments, she invited him for coffee specifically to listen. "I want to understand your concerns better," she told him. "I'm not promising to change my mind, but I want to really hear your perspective." That conversation revealed worries she hadn't recognized and led to compromises that addressed his concerns while preserving her independence. Validation requires separating two distinct questions. Do I understand what they're feeling? And do I agree with their position? You can validate the former without conceding the latter. "I understand why you might see it that way doesn't mean you're right and I'm wrong. I'm curious, what's one conversation where you might try this listening approach in the coming week?" Sometimes, simply shifting our intention from making my point to understanding their perspective can open new possibilities in seemingly deadlocked relationships. Rebuilding connection beyond the conflict. When disrespect becomes a pattern, the entire relationship can begin to revolve around tension. Yet sustainable improvement requires nurturing positive connection outside of difficult moments. Consider intentionally creating interactions focused solely on building positive experiences together. This might mean suggesting activities that have historically brought joy to both of you, expressing genuine interest in their lives without judgment, or reminiscing about shared positive memories. For some families, certain topics consistently trigger conflict. It can be helpful to temporarily agree to limit discussion of these hot-button issues while rebuilding other aspects of the relationship. This isn't avoiding important matters forever. It's strategically creating space for the relationship to strengthen before addressing its most challenging aspects. Look for opportunities to express genuine appreciation for your adult child's positive qualities or actions. Even during difficult periods, most relationships have moments worthy of acknowledgement. "I really appreciated your help with organizing those photos last week," or "I admire how dedicated you are to your work," can gradually shift the emotional tone. Sometimes connection rebuilds through new forms of interaction. Many senior parents find that relationships with adult children improve when they discover new ways to engage as fellow adults with shared interests, rather than primarily through the parent-child dynamic. James, 76, realized nearly every conversation with his daughter centered on his health concerns or her parenting challenges, topics that often led to tension. He suggested they take a weekly photography walk together, a hobby they both enjoyed but rarely discussed. Those Saturday mornings became a conflict-free zone that gradually improved their overall communication. Physical distance can sometimes complicate rebuilding connection. If your adult children live far away, consider whether regular video calls, a shared online activity, or even an old-fashioned letter exchange might create space for positive interaction. What small step toward positive connection feels possible in your situation? Even modest beginnings can gradually shift entrenched patterns. Patience, consistency, and self-compassion. Changing relationship patterns that may have developed over decades requires patience and realistic expectations. Progress often happens in small increments rather than dramatic transformations, particularly with adult children where complex histories inform current interactions. Consistency in applying the approaches we've discussed, maintaining your calm, upholding boundaries, practicing active listening, and nurturing positive connection, gradually demonstrates that the relationship dynamics have genuinely changed. This consistency builds trust that new patterns are sustainable, not just temporary adjustments. Equally important is self-compassion throughout this process. You will have moments where you react in ways you later wish you hadn't. There will be days when maintaining boundaries feels impossibly difficult, or when hurt overwhelms your best intentions for calm response. These moments don't erase progress. They're simply part of the human journey of growth and learning. Remember, too, that while you can significantly influence the relationship through your approaches, you cannot control another adult's responses. Some adult children may need considerable time to adjust to new boundaries or to trust that communication changes are genuine. Others may have their own unresolved issues that limit how they can respond, regardless of your efforts. Barbara, 81, worked for nearly 2 years on changing her interaction patterns with her disrespectful son. "There were weeks of discouragement," she shares. "Times I questioned whether anything was changing. But looking back over those 2 years, the transformation is remarkable. Not perfect, but so much healthier. The key was forgiving myself when I slipped back into old patterns and simply returning to the approaches that I knew worked." If you find yourself struggling significantly with these dynamics, consider seeking support. Talking with a counselor familiar with later life family issues, joining a support group for parents of adult children, or even discussing strategies with trusted friends can provide both emotional relief and practical insights. Moving forward with hope. As we conclude our conversation today, I want to emphasize that experiencing disrespect from adult children, while painful, doesn't have to define your relationship permanently. By focusing on what you can control, your responses, your boundaries, your willingness to listen, and your initiatives toward positive connection, you create the conditions where mutual respect becomes possible. The relationship you ultimately build may look different from what you once envisioned, but it can still be meaningful, authentic, and characterized by dignity for all involved. Many parents in their later years have navigated these challenging waters and found their way to new understanding with adult children. This journey we've explored together today continues beyond our conversation. If you found value in these perspectives, perhaps consider sharing this video with others who might benefit. So many walk this path feeling alone when connection with others who understand could provide much needed encouragement. And if you'd like to explore more topics like this together, subscribing to the channel ensures you won't miss future conversations about the rich, complex territory of family relationships in later life. I'd love to hear about your experiences or questions in the comments below. What approaches have you found helpful in navigating respect with adult children? What challenges seem most persistent? Sharing our stories often illuminates paths forward that benefit us all. Thank you for spending this time together. May your relationships grow in mutual respect, understanding, and genuine connection.